What is up, everybody? Welcome to Birds of the Round Table. Today is a therapy session. Eagles go down 32-9. We're talking top takeaways from the Eagles offense, defense. Where do the Eagles move on from here with Nick Sirianni? Who would you fire first if you were Howie Roseman? Joining me, as always, Shane Half. Give him a follow on X at Shane Half NFL. What's up, Shane?
What's up, Dibes? I feel like I'm just going to be tweeting out that GIF that says "At last my watch has ended." Like every time somebody asks me a question for the next week and a half.
Yeah, man. Just a brutal performance the last 2 months from the Birds. He is Ryan Reese of Philly Sports Alliance. Go check out Philly Sports Alliance. Go follow Ryan on X at Philly Sports PSA. What's good, Ryan?
Just hanging in there. I'm here.
It's a hard day. It was a very hard day with the Jason Kelce announcement. We'll probably talk about that as well.
Sure.
And then last but not least, saving the best for last, David. Go give him a follow at PHL Eagle News. What's up, David?
Not much, man. I think my wife said it best. She said we don't have to waste 3 hours a Sunday anymore for the next 9 months. So I kind of concur with her at this point. The last 7 weeks has been a little rough.
Yep. Guys, if you're watching us live, please be sure to give this video a like, comment your thoughts on the game. Let's start off with the Eagles offense. We have a comment here: using the restroom, making some tea, and grabbing some popcorn in preparation for this. I'll be honest, guys, if you're looking to feel better after the game Monday night, this isn't it.
Hey, we might have some funny jokes along the way. You never know. Fun quips, anecdotes.
Yeah, we'll see. But let's talk about the Eagles offense. Top takeaways, which was the storyline against the Tampa Bay Bucs, and just everything we have seen from the previous weeks reared its ugly head yet again against the Bucs. Let's go in reverse. David, lead us off, man. What the heck happened?
Actually, I think this team was built and supposed to be ran just like the team in 2022. Last year, they were the best first half offense in the NFL. They would get a lead by throwing the ball and then protect the lead by running the ball in the second half and chewing clock. The defense was highly effective and worked that way. It was designed that way. It was built that way. Force your opponent into passing and have your stout pass rushers chase the quarterback without ever having to worry about them doing a run. This year, unfortunately, the two did not complement one another. The pass rush was negated by not being able to force teams into predictable offenses and passing downs. The offense itself never found an identity. It never got into a rhythm. So subsequently, they got desperate and they tried to beat teams with quick scoring plays and shots down the field. They were never able to sustain long drives. They never figured it out all season. Every week on this show, we kept saying, is this the week they're going to break out? Is this the week they're going to break out? And then we started saying, well, hell, after 10 weeks, this is who they are. And then towards the end, we just all gave up. Whatever you want to call it, it just never did. The team was built to perform in the complete opposite manner of how this team did. And subsequently, that's what you ended up with at the end of the year.
What about you, Ryan?
I don't know. I go back and forth on, the reasoning why things fell apart the way they did. But, yeah, listen, there's a lot of people throwing a lot of blame in a lot of places. I think there's equally a good portion of blame to go around to the coaching staff. Nick certainly is not, without blame, and neither is Howie. But, I think Howie's track record recently has been rather good. And, listen, the way you build a team sometimes, you got to hope and pray on certain positions. And unfortunately, that was linebacker and safety this year, and injuries and, poor play certainly did us in. And those, weaknesses were exacerbated by the rest of the team and the rest of the defense. And, offensively, honestly, I think they just kind of overthought themselves. I think they tried to have Jalen do things that maybe Jalen wasn't necessarily ready for or not really in his wheelhouse. And I think they gave him, plays that didn't really have good high probability of good plays and yards down the field. So they got away with what worked last year, and for whatever reason, they never went back to that, and they felt very, we're the smartest people in the room, so we know best kind of vibe there at the end with the lack of change. So. I don't know. I'm still processing the entire thing. It's something I don't think any of us have ever seen. A team that, has managed to get to 10-1 and then right off that cliff. So, it's just disappointing. There's a lot of hurt people in Philadelphia this time.
What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I said this earlier today on Twitter, but the 2023 Eagles season reminds me of the time I watched the movie Downsizing. I don't know if any of you ever saw that movie. Worst movie I've ever seen in my life. But the premise of the movie sounded good. And at the beginning, it was good. And as it wore on, it just became a different movie entirely. And I got this sinking feeling it was terrible. But I continued to tell myself, surely it can't be this bad. And it was. And that's pretty much the Eagles 2023 season in a nutshell. I mean, this offense, man, there are legitimately high school football teams that have better answers to the blitz than the Eagles do. And it's not like this was something that came out of left field, that Tampa Bay schemed up something that they don't normally do in preparation for a playoff game. Tampa Bay blitzes. You knew that. They blitzed you when you played in week 3. But the Eagles, a team that, 4 weeks ago against the Giants went empty every third down, and the Giants would rush 6 to get a free runner, and the Eagles had no answers. They turned around and did that last week against the Giants again to the same result. And then they thought, hey, the third time's the charm against Tampa. Let's go empty on every third down and let Tampa blitz 6, and maybe it'll work this time. I mean, there's no better microcosm for this game than the Eagles' first drive. You get to a 3rd and 2, and you run 4 verticals. Meanwhile, there's a free runner at Jalen Hurts. That's this season in a nutshell. It is pure and utter incompetence from this offensive coaching staff. Hurts was blitzed on 69.2% of his dropbacks last night. He faced an unblocked pressure, a free runner in his face, 37% of the times that the Bucs blitzed. I am planning to chart the average depth of those routes on those unblocked pressures once the all-22 film comes out. I can assure you it's not short enough. There were no answers. There were no options, just like there hasn't been all year.
There was a picture on X where Jalen Hurts has a guy right in front of him and all 4 verticals. Every single wide receiver had his back towards Jalen Hurts, man. It's literally the wild card round. It's unbelievable. And that goes into my take. Some real comments real quick. Dylan says, give us Mike Vrabel. Wade says, refuse to run. Aaron says, can we all agree that some of the personnel decisions have set this team back the past few years on defense? Queen, absolutely. We could go on and on. We've talked about that on the show so many times. Go ahead, Shane.
Oh, this is the picture, right? Is this the one you were talking about?
Yeah, it's sickening, man. And that kind of goes into, Dylan's point here. I'm done. I'm done with Nick Sirianni. And I don't know if we're going to talk about what the odds are that Sirianni comes back. But for me personally, everybody on this team has regressed. And you look at the team, that's on the coaches. Nick Sirianni said this is his offense. The team was consistently unprepared for pretty much the majority of the season, and that's on the coaches. You look at how bad this team was in fundamentals. Missed tackle after missed tackle after missed tackle, That's on the coaches. You look at the team falling behind early and never responding. Coaches. You look at a team that had big leads on other teams, could not put teams away, come out in the third quarter, could not put teams away. That's on the coaches. And I think that's just a direct reflection on Nick Sirianni, who's literally like the main role of this guy is motivational and creating a culture. The team has lost the locker room. And that's my main take of this offense is, you know, we're going to get into some bigger picture things, and we could probably talk about that for like literally 2 weeks because it's so much. But for me, it starts at the top, and that's Nick Sirianni. He has lost this team, and the Eagles need to move on. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth on that. Another takeaway I have with the Eagles offense, it's the wide receiver position. I know a lot of people get sensitive about possibly drafting a wide receiver in rounds like 1 or 2, but the Eagles had zero answer with A.J. Brown out on Monday night. It was bad, man. I mean, you look at Quez Watkins, he sucks. You look at Oz, gave you nothing. Julio Jones will be 35 in a few weeks. Devontae Smith was incredible. You know, you look at this roster, there's no number 3 wide receiver on this team that can step up for A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. That bid is 100% on Howie Roseman. This team is horrifically thin at wide receiver. So I think it is what it is. Add a wide receiver at the top of your list. Maybe not the very top, but pretty high on the top. And the value of the rounds like 1 or 2 in this draft 2024 is extremely deep, extremely strong at the wide receiver position. I would not be surprised if they make that move. I personally probably wouldn't, but they could do a lot worse. So those are my 2 takes. Does anybody else have any other take on the Eagles offense?
There were some people that said the Eagles should strongly consider drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba last draft. And there was a lot of people that told that person or people on Twitter that they were insane and you can't draft another wide receiver. And I would just like to point out, in defense of that unnamed person, that Quez Watkins played 48 snaps last night with wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 3 injured. He played 48 snaps. This is the guy that y'all wanted as wide receiver 3 this year. He had 4 targets for 12 yards. Man, that speed, that's a threat, isn't it?
Sucks, man.
Sure is.
I cannot wait until Quez Watkins leaves in free agency this offseason. I cannot wait.
So this is the same franchise that were just loving this guy. They loved Quez Watkins all off season. Got way too many targets than he deserved. Gavin says no plays from under center. Makes life brutal on Jalen Hurts. Aaron says Howie and Lurie want a yes man. Straight up facts. No doubt about it. Aaron says no one can convince me otherwise, but the change to Patricia was all on Howie and Lurie. They said Sirianni. That said, Sirianni is not a good coach. And everything you're saying is how Howie builds a roster. Anybody have any takes on that or the offense before we move on to defense?
I will say Aaron is a Howie hater. He officially is in the club. But listen, Howie certainly is to blame for the team being the way that it is. But this is Sirianni. Honestly, he's an offensive coach, and he was supposed to be able to come in and motivate this team, and they were firing on all cylinders last year, and now not. So what's the difference? Is it Steichen? Was he the number one reason? Is he the only reason why this team can't replicate what they did last year? That's the questions that I think about and keep me up at night. Is it really just one guy? Is it really just Steichen over Brian Johnson? Was that the big difference, or something else at foot here? So
I think it's a whole bunch of stuff. And like Dobbs said about the wide receiver, I mean, last night, like he said, Devontae Smith had 141 receiving yards. Julio was second place with 22 yards, and he left concussed in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Goddard had 21. Quez had 12. Oz had 0. And a lot of the fan base also wants to keep saying Oz needs more chances. Oz needs more chances. I don't understand that either. I mean, the guy's been in the league 5 years, and A.J. Brown had more receptions, yards, and touchdowns in one season than that guy has his entire career. And I just don't get it. They need to clean house with everything. And like you said about drafting a receiver in the first round, I don't think it's crazy at all. I think they absolutely should take a receiver high. I thought it last year, and I definitely think it even more this season. So, yeah, I think that's
especially with all the A.J. Brown drama that's going down. Right
now. Yeah, absolutely. Plus, you gotta extend Devontae Smith. It's going to cost money, and you're not going to be able to pay $28 million to A.J. Brown 3 years down the road, 25 to Devontae Smith. You got to keep them coming in. But the masses want defense. Let's do it.
Ryan, I think I just met your best friend.
I know Aaron personally. We used to work together. Hence why I know he's an official member of the Howie Hater Club. Hey, listen, he's not wrong. Corner linebacker is what we need. But listen.
And before we leave offense, Cam Jurgens struggled too.
Oh, he had a terrible game.
I ridiculed a lot for this Jackson Powers Johnson pick. But they need a center right guard.
Yeah, can I counter that? Because, yes, as much as I feel like that would be a great idea with Kelsey retiring, but the way he was playing the right guard, and honestly, he struggled down the stretch, not just in last night's game, but I think moving him to his more natural position at center might help solve that issue.
It might. Jackson can play guard or center. He played.
Listen, I'm not saying he can. I'm not saying he can. I'm just saying I'd rather that move and then focus on a guard rather than maybe going for the old center.
Unfortunately, a lot of Jurgens struggles are mental, which that doesn't get easier when you're the center. You have a lot more responsibilities.
That's the hard part about this. Like Jason Kelsey just retired. There's some rumors that Fletcher Cox might be on the way. Like all the Eagles' older players played relatively well. Like Fletcher Cox was arguably their best defensive lineman.
Absolutely.
And Jason Kelsey was great. It sounds like Lane's coming back. It sounds like Brandon Graham wants to come back. We'll see. We'll see. But the Eagles got to get younger. They got to get faster. They need more youth on this defense. And does anybody have any other takes on the offense before we talk about the?
All I want to say, and Dives, you know this, as I've said this many a time, is please can we get a tight end too in here that can actually do some things, not just be one dimensional. As much as Stoll has wonderful head of hair, he's not really much of a catcher. And quite honestly, I'm not even that big of a fan of him as a blocker personally, but Calcaterra can't stay on the field because he gets concussed every 2 games. And, outside of that, who else do you got? So, please get an actual tight end too. Just a thought.
Yep.
I wouldn't be opposed to getting a tight end 1, but that's a different discussion.
All right. That's
blasphemous.
That's a hot take. Rodney says, stop stressing. It's only football. What are we doing here? No, I think I told you that a few years ago. All right, let's roll on to the Eagles defense. Shane, lead us off, man. What was the take?
Nobody has the first clue how to tackle. Like the Eagles had a missed tackle rate of 21.3% last night. 21.3%. Zach Cunningham missed 3. Remember when Zach Cunningham being injured was why the run defense sucked? He missed 3 tackles. Josh Sweat, Kevin Byard, James Bradbury each missed 2. Jalen Carter, Avonte Maddox, Hassan Reddick, Bradley Roby each missed 1. 62.3% of the Bucs passing yards came after the catch. 82.4% of their rushing yards came after contact. Nobody on this team has a clue how to tackle. I tweeted out on the opening drive, they had like that 3rd and 3 through a screen pass. James Bradbury comes flying downhill, whiffs on the tackle, and they get a first down. I said Keely Ringo wouldn't have missed that tackle. Like the Eagles might legitimately have won that game if they benched James Bradbury and they played Keely Ringo the whole game. Probably not, because the offense still sucked. But Bradbury was targeted 6 times. He gave up 5 catches for 108 yards and a touchdown, a perfect passer rating when targeted. He allowed 67 yards after the catch. And you might say, well, he did force 1 incompletion. Well, that incompletion would have been a 47-yard touchdown because he got cooked by Mike Evans, but Mike Evans dropped it. Yep. James Bradbury was absolute garbage this entire season. And the Eagles had young corners sitting on the bench, and they never even tried to make a change. Like, the only reason Ringo got on the field was because Darius Slay got hurt. And that's just so on point for an Eagles organization that is overly committed to veterans, and they are overcommitted to trying to justify their mistakes. And we've seen it for years. And there were reasons to be concerned about Bradbury when you re-signed him. Just stop playing him. Just stop playing him. And the Eagles aren't willing to do that. They will not admit a mistake. It's why Quez Watkins played as much as he did until finally the outcry became too much. It's why Bradbury played all season. You've got to stop doing it. You got to play young guys at some point, and it's got to start this offseason.
Yeah, and you got to develop guys all season long and get ready for the playoffs.
Play Nolan Smith. I've been saying to play Nolan Smith all season. And again, this is not me endorsing PFF grades. You know who the second highest graded defender for the Eagles was in that game? It was Nolan Smith. You know how many snaps he played? 16, which is pretty much a career high for him because we spent a first-round pick on a guy we won't even play. But he rushed the passer 4 times and got a sack. Just, by the way, him celebrating with Brandon Graham after that sack, that was like the highlight of my night. That made me so happy to watch.
The Fletcher Cox Brandon Graham sack was awesome. That was a good moment. Ryan, what would your take on the defense?
Listen, I honestly thought the defense played a lot better than we all expected, to be perfectly honest. They held on for as long as they could, and they kept this a close game. They allowed the offense a chance to put some points on the board. They just couldn't do it. So, listen, I think it could have been a lot worse given the defense playing a little over their heads, so to speak, over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, listen, we did our pregame show, and I basically called for Bradbury's benching, start Ringo. They obviously didn't do it. I honestly, Shane, I thought you were going to say, Bradbury was targeted 6 times and gave up 7 catches for blah, 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 blah. Like, I thought somehow he gave up an extra catch in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That's how bad he was. It seemed like every time you turned around, it was Bradbury doing something terrible. And the one time, you're right, the one time, that play where Mike Evans basically just dropped a 40-plus yard reception. The second that he went down, I stood up and I yelled at my TV as loud as I could. I said, James Bradbury, don't you dare get up and do that stupid quarterback, no thing, because you had nothing to do with that, young man. And I pointed and I yelled, and thank God he didn't do it. I would have been so upset. I would have flipped some tables. But listen, you're right. They have a plethora of young corners. And listen, they may all not turn out to be anything. I think Ringo certainly has an ability, and I think Ricks certainly has a place. We didn't really see much of the other guys, obviously, but, and I think Nolan Smith has also an ability to become a good player in this year. They're just really slow playing him. Although, did anybody see the one play where it looked like he was trying to trip somebody? But nobody mentioned it on the broadcast.
Yeah, that looked weird. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening there, but I thought that was pretty funny. But listen, as much as, I think we all would have loved to have somebody like Brian Branch here, I think Nolan Smith will eventually turn into a pretty decent player and maybe go the route of a Josh Sweat, where doesn't really get a lot of the playing time and kind of builds himself up. And speaking of Josh Sweat, I'm glad to know that he's actually alive. and did one thing at least quasi right last night and got himself sacked. But again, I'm just more worried about his well-being, not having seen him in over a month and a half. But listen, I think that hats off to the defense. They did as best as they could with what they had. They couldn't tackle a 8-year-old girl, but still, they did the best they could. They tried to keep us in the game, and offense just couldn't do jack. Yeah.
Aaron says Keely Ringo needs coaching, but is way better than any of the other cornerbacks. We have Chris saying, I was there last night. Oh, my God. I can't even imagine. How lucky are the Eagles that this game wasn't in Philadelphia? Could you imagine that performance?
Well, Darius Slay was already saying that he was glad it wasn't in Philadelphia so they wouldn't get booed.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I don't even know. It would have been very ugly.
Honestly, I would have sold my ticket. Yeah. But seriously, why would I not get $300-400 hopefully for a ticket, help pay for next year? And I've already seen a couple playoff games. I'm good. I don't need them to get their asses handed to them by Tampa, which own us in the playoffs and are the source of so many terrible, painful memories of the end of the vet, the beginning of the link. Joe Jaravicius, I don't even want to talk about it.
By the way, Aaron, Shane, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I have Branch as a top 15 guy last year? I might have. I'm not sure.
I can check that for you while we talk.
I know you can. Aaron says, cannot wait until Slay is gone.
Contrary to popular belief, I do not have your big board memorized, but I'm working on it. It's close.
How dare you?
Gavin says Jordan Davis is a statue.
Yeah, you had him 12th. Mark and I had him at 20. David had him at 21.
There you go.
And Ryan does not participate. So
wow, I will this year. Trust me, I'm working on that big board. It's getting bigger.
All right, David, what was your take on the defense?
Well, I waited all day to drop my James Bradbury 108 yards take, but Shane beat me to a punch there.
My bad. This is why I always go last when I host.
Yes.
I don't want to steal other people's stuff.
So I'm going to pivot to something else, but in addition to what y'all talked about the Eagles being stubborn and too committed to their guys, the roster construction is terrible on the defensive side of the ball. You sign bargain basement bin linebackers. Well, you are going to get bottom of the league play, and you're going to see all the missed tackles that we got to enjoy the whole season, and that was on full display last night. And you can blame it on a lot of things. You can blame it on Patricia. You can blame it on Desai. But this is a team that has had 3 different defensive coordinators in the past 11 months, and not a damn one of them could stop a decent quarterback. None of them. Gannon's numbers, you can say they look good, but that was assisted by playing Wentz twice, giving up 20 sacks, and everything else that just padded all these numbers. I mean, it can't be everybody else. At some point, you have to look within, and you have to start changing your philosophies a little bit. Now, do I think that he's right to not value linebacker as highly as some other people? Maybe, probably, but you can't completely ignore it, and that's what they've done. They are less than 5% of their resources to safety and linebacker this year, and you just can't win like that. It's been on display for 18 weeks. Everybody exposed the middle of the field all year. So I think Howie needs to have a little bit of the blame in this as well for the roster construction.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Like my just you guys nailed it. But my quick take was just how exposed the Eagles were last night. Just not just defensively, but offensively as well. But strictly defense. You had multiple channels, national stage, just literally laughing at the Eagles tackling, literally pointing out everything wrong with the roster. So
the offense can be fixed. I mean, if there's a silver lining, that can be fixed. I mean, I think Shane could be OC and fix the damn thing next week. But, I mean, the offense could be fixed. The lack of talent at certain positions on defense, until they invest in them, it doesn't matter who your defensive coordinator is. It's going to be the same issue over and over.
That's what some might say that's what this team needed. And until those changes are made, this team maybe had to hit rock bottom until something moves. The needle moves.
You guys know that, the scene in The Office when Michael's trying to recruit everybody to a pyramid scheme, and Jim tells him it's a pyramid scheme, and he says, how? And then he just walks up and he takes the marker and he draws the triangle. And then Michael's like, oh, I've got to go make a call. If the Eagles brought me in and said, how do we fix the offense? I would literally walk up to the chalkboard, take the piece of chalk, and draw a slant.
Yes. A curl route.
And then they'd be like, oh, I got to go make a call. Like, and early in the game, they threw that one slant to AJ Brown, to Devontae Smith against a nickel blitz, and it went for like 30 yards. And I tweeted that clip and I said, did the Eagles just run a slant against the blitz? And they never did it again. So I'm pretty confident that was just a happy accident. Like, he just happened to be running the one slant route they'll run a game on a play where a blitz came. It was not some sort of adjustment. All the pieces are there on offense. Like, you need a better wide receiver 3. Obviously you got some O-line question marks now with Jason Kelsey out, and are you shifting Cam Jurgens over and putting Tyler Steen at right guard? Is that the plan? We'll see what they do there, but you've got a potential need. You can get centers, offensive guards on day 2 of the draft, but the issues on offense are coaching. The issues on defense are coaching, it's personnel, it's roster construction, it's literally everything. And it's time to gut it. I put out a tweet of a mock draft in the 4th quarter, and I didn't draft a cornerback in that mock draft, and everybody was like, who's playing corner next year? I was like, you drafted Keely Ringo, you drafted Zach McPherson, you drafted Josh Jobe, he was a UDFA, so was Eli Ricks, but you've drafted guys, you signed Isaiah Rodgers, play these guys. Like, just play them. Yeah, the Chiefs draft, they went young on defense. It was awful for half a season. It started getting better down the stretch last year. They won a Super Bowl. Boom, top 5 defense this year. It's not always that easy, but Keely Ringo should have 700 snaps under his belt right now, instead of basically virtually being a rookie again next year. You have got to draft and play young players. No more spending a first-round pick on an edge rusher that plays 150 snaps all season. No more drafting. Granted, Ringo fell way further than I ever thought he would. I had a first-round grade on him. But no more drafting these guys to put them on the bench. Put them on the field and let them play. Because the Eagles need 2 linebackers. They need 2 safeties for next year. Maybe they need a cornerback. I don't know. We haven't seen the cornerbacks. They've been stockpiling play hardly, but just, you got to draft guys and play them. You have got to put rookies on the field. The Eagles last year had the least snaps played by rookies, and the Chiefs had the most. I remember that being a talking point going into the Super Bowl. I don't know what those numbers are this year. I cannot imagine that the Eagles are not near the bottom of the league again in rookie snaps, and that's with 2 first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah. All right, let's roll on to our 3rd question of the night, and that is, who would you fire first if you were Howie Roseman, Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni, Matt Patricia, or yourself, Howie Roseman? All right, let's rephrase that. If you were Jeffrey Lurie, who would you fire first? That sounds a little bit better. Lead us off, Shane. Who gets the axe first?
I mean, yes. but if I can only pick one, get Matt Patricia out of there. And as much as I've displayed disdain for this disgusting offensive system, I would yeet Matt Patricia out of that building so fast. Like, I would have announced Matt Patricia was fired during halftime. Like, how is it 8:45 on Tuesday and Matt Patricia hasn't been announced that he's fired yet? That's absurd. Get Matt Patricia out of there.
All right, 1 for Matt Patricia. What about you, David?
Matt Patricia. Yes, every sentiment he just expressed is exclamation point behind it. Yes, get them out of the building.
Ryan.
Well, listen, Shane said something that I couldn't agree with more. It's not going to matter who your defensive coordinator is if you don't have the personnel out there. You sign guys off the couch. You sign guys off the trades, the plumbers, the electricians, whoever you're going to sign. But for me, it's Brian Johnson. I want this offense back, and we wasted a year, and I don't want to waste another year again. And listen, it may take a year to get this, defense usable, and I'm not saying Patricia shouldn't get fired or Desai or anybody on that defense. I care a little bit less about who the coordinator is going to be, more than I care about who the O coordinator is going to be to fix and get this offense back to where we all know it should be.
Yeah.
I didn't know for a moment if you were going to say I said something that you couldn't agree with or that you couldn't agree with more. It could go either way. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way I do.
Aaron says, where's all the above?
Wow.
But yeah, Nick Sirianni winning 44%. Second.
Can I just say the whole Nick Sirianni thing? Like,
Go for it.
I get it. This has been a 180 like we've never seen in the NFL, or at least one that I can think of. That again, we know we were 10-1. We weren't the greatest 10-1 team ever. That's for damn sure. We had questions leading up to every game. We're like, well, at least the win's a win kind of thing. And that's the way we kind of took it until the wheels completely fell off that bus. But, I just still think it's wild to fire a coach a year after making a Super Bowl appearance, and whether or not you give him any credit for that or not, regardless, he still was the head coach that led them there. And whether you give the credit to the coordinators there or whatnot, or if you give him extra blame for potentially losing a locker room or having some sort of rift within the players. Definitely something seems to be amiss, but I feel like he at least deserves the opportunity one more year to try and get the coordinators right and get things back on track, if anything. And I know people are always, you're going to waste another year. Where are you going? Where are you going? Are you in a rush somewhere? Like, I don't know about you, but I've been an Eagles fan for 40 freaking years. We have one Super Bowl in that time. I'm in no rush. Like, things happen. We may not see the playoffs again. The fact, Ives, you also just said, well, things have certainly hit rock bottom. We're still an 11-win playoff team. That's not rock bottom. Do you remember rock bottom?
Dude, this team did not deserve to be in the playoffs.
I'm not saying they did. But man, things could be so much worse. I think the expectations have gotten us to a place where the fall was so severe. And because they were so high, the drop was so great and so long of a just completely wheels falling off that it seems a lot more severe than it is. And I think, as Shane said, the offense, I feel like, is very fixable. The defense, you just need to get halfway competent people at a couple of positions here, get a little youth infused, and the defense could be manageable. I'm just saying, I don't think it's as severe as some people are making it out to be. I think there are plenty worse situations. And, maybe, listen, I might be more of a positive guy. And whatnot, and look at things a little bit more with a grain of salt. But listen, we have been through much worse as a fan base. We have seen how terrible it can be when this team is at a true rock bottom. We're at a very low point. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to understate it at all. I'm just trying to say it could be worse. Things are at least fixable. And I want to see if Nick Sirianni can take another stab at it personally. I'm not a quick trigger guy. I'm really not.
and I just want to comment on that. Like we did a show on this several months ago. Biggest question marks heading into the 2023 season. They were what? The coordinators.
Yep.
It was Nakobe Dean.
Yep.
And very little after that. We were very, very confident in this Philadelphia Eagles team. And I think that's the most disheartening piece of how they lost is the amount of questions that require answering this offseason. Why did the culture of the Eagles completely fall apart? Why did Nick Sirianni lose the locker room? How can you be so inept in figuring out how to slow down a defense? What the heck happened to Jalen Hurts' running ability? Why did the defensive line production drop off so severely? What the heck happened to James Bradbury? Will Howie Roseman finally admit he was wrong and invest in real linebackers? Like, it goes on and on. Like, every single one of those questions has so many layers, and it's overwhelming. It's an overwhelming feeling. Maybe that's how.
And I get that. And believe me, I'm with you. I'm with you right there. And I feel all of those things, and I have all of those questions. And we do not have answers for any of them right now. And that is so frustrating as we're sitting here, as we're watching other teams, mind you, who we have beaten. And we know when it comes push to shove that we should be able to beat, but we're not. We're sitting at home. And that's the worst part is we come off of an improbable Super Bowl run, and then we come right back down, smack down to earth. And it sucks. It stings like hell. It stings.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. I'm with you. I'm just, again, I want to try to be a little bit more patient. And I get it sex you with some of the names that are out there for head coach, Mike Vrabel. If you're a Bill Belichick kind of guy, like whatever, there, there's a couple other names that are very, very intriguing. And I understand it. And listen, I wouldn't hate it if necessarily that's what happens. I just would give him another shot. That's all. Just give him another year. Give him a chance to get the coordinators right. And listen, we haven't even talked about the potential Howie and Lurie, meddling. Is that a thing? Is that affecting anything within this organization in a negative way?
All right, let's keep talking about Nick Sirianni. But first, some comments. Amish says Patricia has to go. Stat says AJ killed the locker room. TO 2.0. I hate to say it. Defense is going to be better once Fletcher stops eating up Jalen snaps. I don't know about that. We have Slowick and Monken, two definite targets for the Eagles. Anthony's in the house. What's going on, Anthony? Saying I would fire Sirianni and the rest of the coaching staff, minus Stout and who's the special teams guy? Michael Clay. I believe his name is Michael Clay.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
The roster wasn't constructed if they had injuries. Very little, if any, depth. What did Nick do to solve any problems? Fire Kevin said players gave up on coaching staff, period. Alyssa says fire all coaches. Patrick Queen is on the market. I'm in.
Love him.
Alyssa also says get rid of James Bradbury. Anthony says, I don't care. Sirianni loses games, but shows no emotion, does not even get fired up for a big game. Absolutely. He drafted a linebacker. It didn't work. And Nakobe Dean didn't do anything.
It was the third round.
I'll be honest. Like it looked like it just feels like after that Niners loss, like the team quit. Like that loss just gutted this team. And that goes with the Matt Patricia thing as well. But Shane, final question of the night, and it kind of goes into Sirianni. What is the percentage that the Eagles move on from Nick Sirianni?
I think it's like 65%. They asked Jalen Hurts straight up, do you want Nick Sirianni back? And he said, I didn't know he was going anywhere. Like, if you want him back, that's a pretty clear place to just say yes. They asked, do you have confidence in him? And he said, I've got confidence in everyone in the building. Again, that's a real simple yes or no question. And he's not saying yes to those questions. I think Sirianni should go. I cannot do another year of watching all 22 and pointing out blatantly obvious things that are simple day one installs to fix, and it just never gets addressed. I stole this from Shul Kapadia, but he always talks about, as a coach, do you do more with less? Do you get what you should out of a team, or do you do less with more? And this season was about Nick Sirianni doing less with more. And there's no other way to cut that. Now, we don't know what is going on behind the scenes. Maybe Nick Sirianni was trying to be the head coach CEO and fully trusts Brian Johnson to run the offense, and this is all Brian Johnson's fault. It could be. I don't think that's likely. That's not my read on it. I look at simple things like Shane Steichen being the OC last year and the Eagles being 32nd in motion rate, and he goes to Indianapolis and they're like 9th or 10th in motion rate. And then this year the Eagles are last again. Like, I look at a lot of those philosophical things and I say that has to be coming from Sirianni. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just, maybe Steichen changed his mind. Maybe it's coming from Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, which would be weird because it's pretty analytically driven that motion's important. But I need people to stay in their lanes and do their jobs. And I don't know who's overstepping. If this is Howie meddling in all of this, stop it. If it's Nick Sirianni meddling and maybe he's the issue and Brian Johnson wasn't able to run the scheme he wanted to, then he needs to go, or he needs to step back. He needs to hire somebody that will he will trust to do the job and do what he's good at, which again, I'm not sure what it is. I thought he was a culture guy last year. He looked like a culture guy. It's easy to have a good culture when you're a 14-win team. The wheels fell off this year and he didn't look like much of a culture guy. The culture kind of stunk. So I'm not sure what he's bringing to the table, but I don't exactly know how all this is parsed out behind the scenes. So we're going to find out a lot as heads start to roll, because heads will roll. It's just whose heads are going to roll. Stories are going to start coming out, and I can't wait to see where the faults lie and see if I'm right or not.
Going to be a wild offseason. Prince says there was no game adjustments. Fire the OC and the DC. David, what's your percentage that Sirianni gets the boot?
Like 30%. Like I don't think it's as high as probably all of y'all do. I have a few reasons for that. A lot of people keep saying to hire Vrabel, hire Belichick. But unless Jeffrey Lurie does something he's never done in 30 years of owning his team, they're going to hire someone who's never been an NFL head coach before, because they never, ever have hired anyone who has been an NFL head coach. It's always been someone new, someone they thought was innovative. I don't know who that would be if they get rid of them. There's a couple names out there that have been good. And something else to keep in mind is Nick Sirianni didn't hire Brian Johnson. Somebody in that building thinks very highly of him. Now, to what Shane said, none of us know what goes on in there. And it appears as if it's Nick's offense, and it appears as if Brian was the play caller. But I know a lot of people keep saying the same things about the offensive coordinator. Fire him. He's stupid. He doesn't know how to make adjustments and all this. If you could indulge me for 30 seconds here, I've spoken to him. I've started writing a story in regards to Brian Johnson. He signed with Utah to go to college when he was 16 years old. At 17, he took over Utah's starting job from Alex Smith, and he won more games than anyone in school history. In 2008 season, he went to the Sugar Bowl and beat Alabama and was named the most outstanding player there. At 22, he became the youngest quarterback coach at Utah. At 24, he became the youngest OC in the country in 2010. In 2020, he became the first African-American offensive coordinator in the history of Florida. And then in 2021, he was hired by the Eagles as their quarterback coach. And unless everybody else saying all these things have accomplished some of those things, I don't think the guy is stupid. I think he's a very bright guy. I think he understands, football better than any of us have ever have. So I don't know what the question is or the answer is as far as moving on from someone, but somebody in that building believes in him. He's getting head coaching looks. And it's not just due to the Rooney Rule. There's a lot of people who think he's a quarterback whisperer if you go and look at his history for everything he's done for all the quarterbacks. So I don't know. I think it's low. I think it's 30%. Again, That's just a guess. I have no intel, no idea.
Mike says, if Sirianni is a culture guy, how could he allow a collapse like this? Our offensive-minded head coach can't call plays and can't design an offense. Any good coordinator will take a head coach job later. Aaron says, I agree with everything you're saying. Gavin says, after watching Michigan's offense, I think Harbaugh will be a great fit for these players.
Howie's never given up the power for something like that.
Yeah. Jim's going to want too much power.
Yeah,
for sure. Guys, thank you everyone for the comments. What worries me is that when Shane left, how terrible the offense looked. That's a great comment. Great stuff, guys. We are blessed to have quality analysis on our beloved birds. Thanks for the positive comments there. Dr. Midnight Green says our offense is so broken. Hire an offensive guy as a head coach. Anthony says Jalen is the problem as well. Jeff and Howie is meddling because Jeff's kid is part of the analytics team and Howie's obsessed with analytics. Jeff needs to think what direction the team goes. They're going to have to take their lumps and get younger. It's going to maybe not result in wins, but they have to do it. Matt says, is it impossible that play calling is what it is because Jalen can't, because that's what Jalen can handle in the knee injury? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, he wasn't mobile.
You mean, look at last year.
Zero design quarterback runs in that game.
Yeah. He clearly, I would be very, very surprised if he's not having surgery announced in the next few weeks. I think he's been far more injured than anybody realized.
Danny says, would like to see an offensive-minded head coach that can't get poached every offseason. It's hard to say Johnson is good after watching the last 7 games, says Coach K. And then Prince says the team was bad from the beginning of the season. We as fans ignored it because we were winning. Things got worse after the Niners game and after teams went off the game plan. The Eagles never made adjustments. Aiden says, do you think it would hurt for Hurts to be a bit more animated and vocal during games? That stuff doesn't bother me whatsoever. I want him to play well. I just want him to throw for touchdowns. Yeah, we are at 52 minutes in. Let's wrap this show up. We'll throw it around the horn. Ryan, final thoughts on this one. Plugs. Time is yours.
Yeah, listen. We had a rough season as Eagles fans, and this one was a tough one. It's, as I said earlier, the expectations were outer space. They were so high, and ultimately we were doomed to never reach them. But the way that things happened and the fall from grace, if you will, hurts more, and it sucks. And I think that's what the shocking part of it is. I think there's a lot of, as Dive said, it's a lot of unanswered questions that we're going to have all offseason and until they get answered, or maybe they even won't get answered. So I want to, say everyone to have a little patience. Believe in this team to get this thing fixed and get right and get back on the same page as they were last year, or at least somewhat of a functioning NFL team with both sides of the football. So, outside of that, shows throughout the week on Edge of Philly Sports. Obviously, this show every Tuesdays. We're going to continue to do this show every week, breaking down, off-season stuff, draft stuff. Speaking of draft, me and this guy up here doing plenty of draft content, throughout the week and every week leading up until the draft. I think we're doing wide receivers next, our top 10 wide receivers heading into the Senior Bowl, which is in about 2 weeks. Certainly looking forward to that. Party on Broad as well. Doing some shows there, and I think my show, Football Smack Talk Show, is going to return. We took a few weeks off for technical issues, aka my host didn't have a laptop, so we're bringing that back on Monday as well. So I will you shut me up. What a great season number 2 for Birds of the Round Table. The addition of David, as you know, obviously I fought it tooth and nail. You know what? I'm surprised. No, I'm just kidding. No, this has been great talking birds with you guys. Honestly, it's been revitalized, my podcasting, chops. So I appreciate all of you for everything that you guys bring to the table and making me look a lot better than I actually am. So hats off to every single one of you. I appreciate you, and we got to get together more often. So
For sure. David, final thoughts, Eagles versus Bucs, plugs.
I have no final thoughts on that. I have 2 pieces coming out this week with Philly Sports Network and Metro Philly paper entitled The Purge. One's an offensive edition, one's a defense edition. It's basically a who stays, who goes kind of verdict piece. And I'd also like to say, go check out Shane's All 22 and everything he's doing there. Check out Dives and all the shorts he's releasing. They've been amazing. I've enjoyed watching. We agree with most people. I can't wait for a show where we can disagree and discuss a couple, but I've absolutely loved it. Ryan's draft content. And I just like to say I feel fortunate to work with all you guys. It's been a great team. I'm grateful we were able to cover it together. I thank y'all for including me in this, and I thank all of y'all for watching. I've had a really good season. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
appreciate that, man. Make sure you go follow David on X at PHL Eagle News, man. Best, one of the best Eagles follows there is. Period. Shane, final thoughts.
My final thought is that the flu sucks. COVID sucks. Getting him back to back really sucks. I'm tired of coughing during podcasts, but that's mostly my final thought because I don't want to talk about the Eagles anymore. I'm ready to get on to the draft. My watch has ended, except for the All 22. I got to watch tomorrow, but then it's over and I get to turn the page to draft, and I'm really excited to do that. I love doing the draft stuff every year with you guys. Of course, I don't track it as much during the season as any of you guys, so I'll be playing catch up, but I will get there. Season 2 of Birds of the Round Table has been a blast. Really excited for this offseason and heading into round 3. See, I'm already in draft mode. Heading into season 3, it's going to be a blast. So shout out to everybody watching this. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us every Tuesday night. I legitimately look forward to this. This show doesn't feel like work. This is just fun coming on and hanging out with you guys and the viewers as well. So onward and upward.
Absolutely. Go give Shane a follow if you're not already at Shane Half NFL. His videos are so good. Like, there's no words to describe Shane's videos. The best of the best. If you love NFL draft content, we've got tons coming. I've already got almost 100 scouting reports on the channel, positional rankings, much more to come for sure with this channel and BGN and different things like that. So be on the lookout for that. Comments were awesome tonight. Guys, if you're still hanging in with us, please be sure to like this video. Help us get this video out as much as we can. And guys, we'll see you on the next Birds of Round Table. For Shane, for David, for Ryan, for myself, stay awesome, everyone.